Hello there, folks, and welcome to the very first episode of That 6Smith Show, the only show where you get a different, alternative look at 6 Newcastle United talking points every single week, and the only show where you get one Burke providing them. That would be me, Andy 6Smith. Apologies, but I am delighted, for your guys' sake, that I'm not alone in the brand spanking new GallowgateShots studio today. I am with Mr. GallowgateShots himself and the bloke you have to blame for giving me this gig for the rest of the season, the rest of the month. Mr. Chris Wallace, how are you diddling?
Rest of the day, mate. I'm doing well. How are you?
Yeah, you got the new season shake, so...
I've not got the shakes yet.
No?
No, I'm looking forward to this one. I think
that's been like the reaction from so many Newcastle fans I've spoken to, are like, we really want to look forward to it, but we're also a little bit scared as well.
Ask us again in a couple of weeks.
After Manchester City.
Yeah.
It's all right. We'll see. They start the season off slow, man. We'll be all right. We'll be all right. Listen, we came together, didn't we? And came up with this idea because it is an absolutely massive season. There's Premier League. There's our endless search for a major trophy, and there's that small thing called the Champions League as well that we've got to take into account. So we thought, you know what, in my kind of guise as a Premier League broadcaster, I want to kind of provide insight into doing interviews with the players, the press conferences with Eddie, match days, etc., and just give an alternative look. I understand that there's room for analysis and tactics and team news and everything. We want to do things a bit differently, don't we? We want to, we just want a little bit of a different look at it. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that's what this show can provide you. And if not, then
move to the next.
Move to the next, and I'll have my Friday afternoons off again. Only kidding. But yeah, we've only limited it to half an hour, largely because me and Chris couldn't be asked to make it into an hour-long episode, but also because we want you guys to have more accessibility to it, to listen to it on your dog walks, to watch it on your lunch times, however you want to watch it, however you want to listen to it. We're not going to judge you, all right? Just watch it and subscribe until you realise it's shite, in which case, turn off and, like Chris rightly said...
Just don't unsubscribe, just keep that subscribe
Yeah, keep the subscribe going, but just don't watch the show. Hopefully you will. Anyway, hopefully you guys get plenty out of it, because we hope to provide plenty throughout the course of the season. So, without any further ado, 6 talking points for this week's pretty easy, because it's a brand new season and everything. Let's kick things off with the documentary, I suppose. I mean... You were invited to the premiere at least, didn't you? You had a nice night. Yeah. You and Decker were it?
Did you not get an invite?
No, mate. No. I'm not
You're
bitter.
Actually in it as well. I saw your face at one point.
I am. Yeah, I had a few people text me and say, like, it's not a flattering angle of you. And that's where I kind of remind people there is fucking no flattering angle of me. So it's fine. But what did you reckon to it?
The premiere itself.
Well, yeah, go on. The premiere itself.
So the premiere itself, it was arranged very well. Once you were there.
Yeah.
Beforehand, I thought it was a bit of a con. I thought I might be walking into a trap, like some sort of sting or something. Like Ashton Kutcher was waiting behind the scenes of punkers or something. But what got there? I mean, Decker went there.
Yeah.
Set up really well. Went in, obviously got photos taken.
Yeah.
Open bar as well, which is always
open
a good
bar.
thing. Open bar.
They're inviting GallowgateShots to an open bar.
Yeah. But I don't think we'll be getting an invite back.
Amazon's got more money than sense, haven't they?
Then we obviously sat down at everybody from War Flag was there, a couple of other content providers and things like that. A funny story though. They put Jimmy Neal in the wrong seats.
I bet Jimmy wouldn't be best pleased with that. Go on.
So Jimmy Neal, I turned around and this gentleman was walking in. I went, is that Jimmy Neal? And he's like, I think so. Because obviously we were shocked. And so he just sits down the second to back row it was.
Yeah.
And he sits there for a while. A couple of people ask him for a photo.
Yeah.
That didn't go down well. Jimmy doesn't take
He
photos.
doesn't like having photos taken. Just war Jimmy. Nah.
Then he quickly disappeared, but apparently they put him in the wrong seats. He should have been upstairs with the players. And I've just chucked him down with us lot.
Fantastic start to the premiere for Jimmy.
He was not happy about that.
I'll bet he wasn't. No. He's a patron of the cancer charity that I'm patron of as well, and I hear nothing from Jimmy. Just likes to keep himself to himself,
the shadows.
But likes to be treated well. Yeah. You know, like he deserves it because he's a bloody legend.
Of course he does. But the premiere itself, great. We got to see the first 2 episodes.
Yeah.
Which went down really well. A lot of fan engagement throughout it. It wasn't a sort of thing that you could go and just sit and watch because obviously there's a lot of noises left, right, and center.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was good.
It was all right. But first, I must admit, I watched the first ep at about 1:00 this morning, which was absolutely bloody terrible preparation for the first press conference of the season because you're going to ask Eddie about it and that, and it's looking all right so far. I mean, Eddie's reaction was just what you'd expect it to be. Really, this month.
Doesn't give much away, does he?
No, I just don't. It's not his thing. Yeah. Let's just say it's not his cup of tea at all. I mean, I think he knew I was going to ask him about it anyway. And I kind of said to him, how do you kind of look at it? Are you happy that the cameras aren't following you around anymore? And he kind of swerved that a little bit. But the Hows aren't going to be watching it over tea. Sadly, he says he watched it with kind of his hands over his eyes pretty much all the way through.
Forced to watch it.
Forced to watch it was the quote. Yeah, forced to watch it. So I don't know who tied Eddie down to his seat. But yeah, he's. I don't think he's going to be watching too much of a documentary, thankfully.
How many times do you think Jason Tyndall's watched it so far?
No, I'm going to go with once. He's got too much on his hands as Jason, hasn't he? He's. We will come back to Jason actually in a little bit because his name featured quite heavily in the press conference this morning as well, as it has done for the last few press conferences that we've been to. But yeah, the documentary, looking forward to seeing the rest of it. I feel like it's kind of bubbling under the surface a little bit after episode 1. There's a lot to be done with it in terms of the on-the-pitch stuff. Obviously, we're going into the Carabao Cup final in episode 2, so hopefully things will build from there. And we'll have Bernie reading a poem as well, which have been promised in episode 2.
That does happen, yeah.
It does happen.
It does happen.
He's got a good voice, is Bernie.
Yeah.
He's going into broadcasting, probably.
You get a little insight into the likes of the leadership qualities from Dan Burn in that moment, but it's a nice little moment.
I know everyone likes him just because, he's from Blythe, but Bernie, he'll be a good broadcaster. He did a little bit for us in the Premier League production studios last season, and he was absolutely bloody brilliant. Like, really, I mean, he's always been a good interview. But in terms of being an interview and then being a pundit, there's two very, very different things. And the guys behind the scenes down at PLP were like, he's really good. I can
imagine, though, because he just gets into it, doesn't he? Dives straight into it.
He's got crack.
Yeah.
He's got the crack and he's got knowledge as well. So, good on you, Dan. Anyway, so yes, that's the kind of documentary. We're not necessarily going to sprint through every one of these 6 talking points, but we're conscious. It's 30 minutes on the clock. There's 5 more talking points to get to. And there's more to talk about than just the documentary. So let's move on. I want to talk about the youngsters, man, because how blooming young is Lewis Miley? Like, it's the first time I've properly met him. We always have media access day at the start of every season, right? So you kind of deal with players. Sometimes I'm interviewing them. Sometimes we're just doing the kind of the walkthroughs, the broadcaster messages for different, regions of the world, different broadcasts across the world. So you get to chat to the players while they're waiting and everything and catch up with them. And we'll come back to that in a bit. And I chatted to Lewis. And honestly, I know he's 17 is the lad. Lovely lad. So softly spoken, so quiet, but real canny lad as well. Just a proper nice lad. But I was like, if someone hadn't told me your age, I'd thought you were like, I know he's 6'3" and he towers over me.
Massive.
But I'd still think you're just a tall 14, 15-year-old. But he's such a young looking lad, lovely lad. But every one of those players are speaking about him as if, he's the next big thing. To come out of the academy, most certainly, but also serious talent. I think you'll have seen it in pre-season from the games you watched.
Of course, I think it's always the issue, and as fans, we look at these players and think, let's not get too excited just yet.
Nah.
But you can't help yourself sometimes.
Yeah.
And obviously, we saw with Anderson how well Anderson has done recently. But then Lewis, out of nowhere, obviously he makes his debut against Chelsea, comes on as sub, and hits the bar, if I remember right, as well.
Yeah.
And ever since then, he's had such a good impact, and it's probably a player where previously Eddie Howe's been thinking, let's loan him out for a little bit, let's see what happens. But can we afford to do that this season? I think we need to look at these youngsters and fall back on them in those situations. Obviously, cup games, that's going to be where he's going to get his bread and butter this year. That's where he's going to feature.
Well, that's the thing. I think Eddie thinks, you know what? We're not going to loan him out because he can learn much more here for now. And he's also just a little bit too young.
Yeah.
He's only 17, but he's got such a head on his shoulders already. He's got such a brain on him. You can see him when he picks up an extra yard of space. Super impressed with him towards the back end of last season out to come in. But then to do what he did in the summer series, all right. He tailed off, I would have said, towards the back end of pre-season. But this is a 17-year-old kid. I was hearing Longy talk about him the other week, and he was saying, this is the best thing to come out of the academy in a while. And you can see why. He's seemingly got everything. Not, like you say rightly, mate, not to put too much pressure on the kid. He's 17 years old. But honestly, I know Eddie talks a lot to me about character of players as well. He looks for character in players. He looks for personality. This kid's got a lot of character. Just a genuinely humble, decent lad who hopefully, touch wood, can go on to do some great things in the game and for the club as well.
And do you know what it is? Eddie Howe's the right person to take control and coach him and the likes of the rest of the lads.
Yeah.
The coaching staff as well, because loaning him out at the age of 17, that could be more damaging for him, taking him away from obviously friends and family.
Yeah.
And the environment which Eddie Howe and the owners created as well at Newcastle.
Yeah.
That could just damage him massively. It's a no-brainer keeping him here now.
Yeah. And the beauty of it is as well, not many people outside of the club know him. Or know of him too. I mean, in football circles, naturally scouts other clubs will. But when we were doing the media access day and Lewis turns up to do his kind of, his little walks to camera and his little lines to camera, I heard 3 or 4 people, behind the scenes, people, producers, APs, etc., turn around and go, Who's the tall kid? No one knows who he is because he's just so unassuming and so polite and so genial. And he comes in and, he'll have a massive impact, I think, at times this season. 100%. Not from the start, but, he'll come into it. You mentioned Elliot Anderson as well. I mean, Christ, he's still 20, isn't he? He's still young. He's very, very young. But everyone's banging on and saying, this is a big season for Elliot. And you can see it. Eddie's talked more about him. Obviously, as pre-season's developed, he's the top scorer from pre-season as well. And you just feel like if the Geordie Maradona's going to burst onto the Premier League scene, this is the season. And I think it might start with tomorrow.
He's the player that I'm excited to see this season. You can talk about Gordon and Barnes for till the cows come home. Of course you can.
Yeah.
But Anderson, what he's done in pre-season, very similar to what Miggy done last pre-season. Just his name's on the team sheet. Almost every single time. He obviously gets the last minute brace.
In
the States. And he had quite an impact last season when he was making those appearances. And I've said this so many times this year that this is the season for that player and this player.
Yeah.
He's another one that I'm just going to add to that ever-growing list.
There's so many of them. There's so many. I was looking through the squad before that media access day and I was like, there's about 7 players who you're looking at and thinking, you could have a huge... Yeah, absolutely. We've stacked up the left and the right's absolutely, still pretty strong in fairness.
It's that versatility though, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, and the thing is with Anderson too, with Elliot, it's his fitness. I know Eddie alluded to it over in the States, but my God, that kid's fitness is like next level. He's powerful now. He's muscular as well.
He reminded me of when he was chasing the balls down and what Matt Ritchie used to do.
Yeah.
He just used to attack players. Any player that had the ball, he just used to attack them.
Yeah.
And Elliot's doing exactly the same every time I see him.
I'm going to chuck another name out there. I saw him the other week, Elliot, and it's just his stature now. He's obviously been putting some serious work in terms of the gym. He looks a bit along the James Milner sort of line with the unbelievable stamina, the power of him. He's difficult to knock off the ball. His versatility, like you say. I don't know whether James Milner's that kind of blueprint that you'd look at with Elliot Anderson, with probably, with all due respect to James, maybe a little bit more spark, shall we say, with Elliot. But look, he's someone to get really excited about. And I know I haven't spoken away from the cameras with Eddie. I know how excited he is about Elliot as well. So looking forward to seeing him. There's one other one that I want to kind of mention about the youngsters. And again, it's hard to... You think he's a lot older because he's been on the scene for quite a while, but that's Anthony Gordon. He was on the scene so young at Everton. He's obviously had the under-21 success in the Euros over the summer. And he turns up on media access there. And, I just turned to my right and suddenly he just apparated right to my right-hand side. So I hello, Ant, you right? He says, yeah. I said, you're back? Like, did you not get a holiday? He goes, no, I just came back. I was like, pardon me for asking, but why? Why didn't you take a holiday? You've just won the Euros with England.
Player of the tournament.
Player of a blooming tournament. You're flying at the moment. Why didn't you just take a week? It was like, nah, because as soon as you take a week or you take any longer in this setup, you fall behind again. And I've just gotten up to speed with what they want from me. I feel like I'm really, starting to gel with this system now. And he said most tellingly, he was like, I'm really bloody enjoying being here at Newcastle. Oh, absolutely. And you could see it in his eyes. And I was like, you must be shattered. He was like, I am. Because it's pre-season and it's intense as hell. But fair play to the lad for coming back straight away from the Euros. Pretty similar to what Trips did, wasn't it? Yeah. Come back from England duty. But coming straight back into it and having the pre-season that he's had as well, I think there might be a drop-off with him at some point because it'll catch up on him. He's naturally fit. But I think there will come a point in the season where that just starts to take its toll, and Eddie and the staff will know all about that. But from what I've seen of him already, this is a big, big season for him. Like, he's looking seriously good.
He's got an internal battle as well. He's got that internal battle to be on in that starting 11. Because obviously you've got Barnes on the left-hand side, you've got Joey Linton, you've got Isaac on the left, you've got Anderson that can play there as well.
Willock, when he comes back, you can put on the left.
There's such a battle on that left-hand side.
Yeah.
And he needs to be switched on up there.
Yeah.
To, like you said, obviously that mentality that he's got to come straight back in. I want to get to graft. I don't want to lose this position.
Yeah, the attitude is sensational. That attitude is like exactly what you'd want to hear as a manager. And then as soon as he comes back, if Eddie's listening to him and going, Anthony, why did you decide to come back? Gaffer, I want to force my way into the starting 11. It's absolute gold for a manager, isn't it, to hear that? And for the fans as well, who, when Ant joined, there was that kind of Marmite sort of reaction of some wanted him, some necessarily didn't. I think he'll be winning them over this season because every single time I've dealt with him, Chris, honestly, what a lovely kid he is. Like a real decent kid to speak to. He's got good values. There's talk of him making mistakes before, but take him as he find. And genuinely brilliant kid. Having said that, moving on to talking point number 3, the midfield. Loads of times last season, I remember talking to people and saying the midfield, Eddie admitted it himself. It's the kind of a weak area because we had so many injuries. Talent-wise, it's there. But injury-wise, we were a bit stretched at some point, especially when John Joe left as well. This season, that's the strongest part of the squad. 100%. You look down it, Joe Linton, Bruno, Longy, Willock, obviously Tonali coming in there as well. Miley coming in too. I mean, geez, that's a serious... How the hell do you pick 3? Eddie said in his presser this morning he's got about 5 or 6 decisions to make. And he laughed about it. I was like, I don't envy Eddie. I don't envy you picking a team tomorrow.
Do you know what it is? That midfield and the selection that we've got, 5-6 players there?
Jeez.
That's up there with the best in the Premier League this season. I don't think any other club can have that many players to rely on when you start going down the list.
Yeah.
To have a 3rd and 4th choice centre midfield partnership out of any of those lads that we just mentioned.
Yeah.
Nobody else has got that.
No, it's incredible. And the talent that's in there. I mean, you look at, Joe Linton, obviously, what story he's been. You got Bruno in there. You chuck in Tonali when he comes up to speed. Longy was pretty much just an integral part of that midfield last season.
Missed him when he wasn't there last year.
Absolutely did. Joe Willock, I mean, he's out till September, probably the international break. Sadly, with his hamstring injury that seems to have had a bit of a recurrence of, but, just tease him back into things. Joe Willock's one of the most talented players in the squad. 100%.
Underrated.
And then, obviously, you're looking down the rest and you've got a 17-year-old to blood in there. Like we said, Tonali, you've got someone just to bed in. It's a tough call,
It's a headache.
It's a nice headache, as a cliche would go for a manager, but we'll come on to the kind of the team for tomorrow because loads of people are trying to make the guesses for the team tomorrow. I think a shitload of people are going to be quite disappointed. I think Eddie's going to go tried and tested. I think he's going to go off pre-season form. But we'll come back to that in a bit. But yeah, the midfield looking absolutely brilliant. Did you see, by the way, the love that Bruno has for Kinder chocolate?
Episode 2.
There you go. Doing the rounds.
The documentary.
There it is.
That got released yesterday, I think it was. By, it was one of the papers on the outlets. Then obviously that went across the Newcastle timeline on Twitter and social media. But yeah, there's a little segment in there where he starts talking about his love of chocolate.
Love
Kinder Egg. Being that one.
I mean, there's a few puns going on there in there now. I mean, Bueno Guimaraes is absolutely fucking terrible, and I'm never going to use that on the broadcast.
Did Nick Pope comment on one of his posts on Instagram called Kinder Boy or something like that?
That might have been it. Yeah, you can hear that rattling around the training ground.
Looks like he's done his hair to match Kinder Eggs as well.
We'll come back to the hair in a little bit. Having said that, I remember doing an interview with Bruno. What was it? I think it was his first season. It wasn't last season. Or was it last season? It was actually, where he dyed his hair blonde. It was just before the World Cup, that were it. And I remember chatting to him in post-match interview, and I said, he scored. I think it was actually against Villa. It will have been against Villa. I think we won 4-0 at St James's, and Bruno was magnificent all the way through. And he'd just done his peroxide blonde for the first time. I said to him, talk us through the hair, and he was like, every time I dye it blonde, I score, and we win. So as far as I'm concerned, keeping it for the World Cup.
Kind of like in the middle at the minute, though. It's like patchy.
It's a leopard sort of print, isn't it? It looks like he supported the Lee Leopards in rugby league.
Joe's gone full hog.
Joe has gone full hog, and I'm delighted. If you've got those two in the midfield tomorrow, Aston Villa are going to be looking at that and worrying a little bit. But yeah, Bruno's hair, bit Marmite.
Questionable.
Yeah, but if anyone can pull it off, it's Bruno Guimaraes.
Yeah, who might talk?
Exactly. Fucking hell, mate. Precisely. Mine's receding faster than Usain Bolt can run 100 metres as well. One comment on Joe Linton. I made a comment on Twitter the other day about Joe Linton and how high his ceiling is potentially this season. That's the in phrase at the minute, isn't it? How high your ceiling is. And it got absolutely, as many things do on Twitter, wiped by fans of opposition clubs. I said, Joe Linton will be, if he can add goals to his game, 15 goals a season, he's in top 3 midfielders in the Premier League. 100%. And there were Man City fans, and there were Arsenal fans, and there were Chelsea, Liverpool, Brighton, etc. They all came in to pile in. I stand by that. I absolutely stand by that.
Let them think it, Andy. It's their concern. Let them think that. We'll just keep this under wraps. I think Joe Linton's the type of player that nobody is ever going to realise how good he is. I don't even think we realise how good he is. Because I think, like you said, there's no ceiling. And I think we're going to be shocked again this season because he'll probably go on and have better than what he has the last season and the season before. Yeah. He's constantly improving, and that'll never stop.
And the thing is, like, every time you speak to the players about him, like, in interview settings, they always turn around, they're like, he's the first one who gets picked. Mm-hmm. Every single time that we're playing like a 5-a-side game or a small side game in training, he gets picked first because if Joe's on your team, we win. And you're like, the amount of times I've heard that, it just can't be a bloody coincidence, like at all. He's an absolute colossus. The other one we've talked about, Longy, and obviously not playing a minute out in the States was the right knacker for him. Because I know how much you loved it. I caught up with him very briefly at the media access day, and I think he was a bit, he was a bit upset not to be playing there. Obviously, he picked up this abductor injury that kept him out. I think he ended up in some downtown area of Atlanta, which seemed a bit dodgy, like unintentionally, completely unintentionally as well.
You just made it sound like he was dealing.
Yeah, certainly not. No, he ended up in some taxi, I think, like with a couple of other players, and taxi took a wrong turn or something, and they ended up in some part of downtown Atlanta where they've been told not to go anywhere near because it was that dodgy. So thankfully he's escaped Atlanta completely unscathed, but he looks back now. I'd be surprised if he starts tomorrow. I still think he's probably about 80-90% and he's starting to feel his way, but he's going to be a big player for us again this season. So hopefully that will be the case. Look, we can't not talk about the signings, can we? I mean, there's only been 3 of them, but 3 quality signings. I mean, look, let's not go first with Tenal. Let's go with the most recent one, Tino. We've got a Tino back in black and white stripes. I haven't met him yet. From everyone I talked to down at Southampton and reporters down at Chelsea, really good lad. Really talented kid as well, obviously before his cruciate injury. And Eddie spoke a lot about him in the presser this morning. I think he gave like a minute and a half, minute 45 answer on him straight away, which is, not always the case with Eddie. He always gives a considered answer, but to talk that long, that glowingly about a player who's only been with us, a week? I mean, that kid could be.
I think it's great how he highlighted the fact that he's very versatile as well. Yeah, and he says naturally a right back can move over a left back, whereas a left back can't do the same, which I can't understand. But
it's the left footer. Yeah, it's the left footing thing, isn't it? Yeah, absolute wrong.
But I like that, and he's addressed that left back situation and kind of closed the door on potential bringing a left back in. I would say because he focuses quite a bit on saying there's options there if needs be. Yeah. But like you said, it's another clever buy by the club. We don't get these wrong at the minute, do we?
Nah, and they're all in that like kind of 30 million bracket as well. Like there's a few people who turn around and go, Livramento, 32 million. You have one good season for Southampton. You're like, nah, actually, no. If you've watched him for longer than that,
the club do the homework.
Absolutely, and if you've got Dan Ashworth in charge, Dan Ashworth knows his sort. And he's watched Livramento for absolute age. So that kid could go. What I liked about it as well in his first interview for Tino, he immediately was like, I want to learn from Trips. I want to learn from Kieran Trippier. And that's obviously been mentioned a lot as Trips as his kind of mentor. But you think that you've got a player like Kieran Trippier ahead of you in the right back position and how much he can bloody learn off trips.
100%.
You know, that's incredible. Not just in terms of a playing ability and in terms of his positional ability, in terms of his mentality as well. Because I've met fewer footballers who've got better mentalities than Trips. Like, he's incredible. He's a born winner, born leader. You just bump into them every now and again and you can see it in them. And Trips is that person. So for Tino to be learning off him, I don't know. Like, I don't know if he's a captain material yet, but who knows in future years.
He'll pick up so many qualities away from football as well.
Absolutely.
From Trips. If he's there to, like you said, just be in his shadow for a little bit and see what happens and learn from him. Yeah. You can't go wrong with that. You really can't. Absolutely. And it's great to hear a player who really, he could be a starting right back in the Premier League. Yeah. For him to then think, actually, I'm happy just to be here for now and learn. Yeah. That's absolutely ideal. That the
one I feel sorry for a little bit is Harrison Ashby. Ashby, so in January, he's off to Swansea, but it'll be interesting to see how he does do at Swansea because they promote a really attacking brand of football. Ashby will fit in really nicely there. It'll be interesting to see how he gets on for the season. Comes back, we could be left with 3 blooming fantastic right backs all of a sudden. It's not the worst position to be in when you're fighting on four or 5 different fronts. So we'll be all right with that. Harvey Barnes. Now, the furores died down a little bit over Harvey. And I know it was around the time that Maxi went out to Saudi Arabia. Harvey came in. I met him I'd not met him before, I don't think. I met him at the first time at Media Access Day. Again, great bloke, lovely lad. Very, very well spoken, speaks very well, smile on his face straight away. And I was talking to him and saying, like, how, you know, just the general crack, like the shite banter, like, you know, have you bought a house yet and everything? He's like, nah, mate, we're still searching. Like, my girlfriend's searching for one. We're looking up in Jesmond at the minute. And, you know, we're looking at different houses. And we're just chewing the fat a little bit. And I'm thinking, fuck me, this is a normal kid. Like, this is an absolutely normal, down-to-earth bloke. I mean, it was the fact that we had to do a bit of shooting, a bit of filming that kind of broke up the chat. But really just a canny lad again that's obviously got plenty of talent. I mean, what did you have, 13 goals last season?
And all the kids that can score goals.
Like it from the left. And he's already shown it in pre-season, you know, against Villarreal. So very, very, very excited to see him on the left-hand side.
Just added to Eddie Howe's headache, that left-hand side.
Gordon
if you're going on form, Barnes needs to be, obviously he's not up to scratch with the teams and formations and things like that, but he's just bagged you 2 goals.
And that's where I think he'll start Gordon. I think he'll start Gordon tomorrow because Gordon's a little bit further down the road in terms of fitting in with how the team play. Barnes, strong option to bring off the bench at 60, 70 minutes if we're struggling against Villa. And let's face it, Villa are a blooming good side. So I think he'll go with Gordon tomorrow. Okay. But Barnes has got a huge role to play this season. And again, it's his versatility. He can play just behind a striker if need be. Can often come across to the right and cut in on his left. You know, he can do all sorts. So definitely there. Sandro Tonali, what? This JD advert with David Ginola.
I was hoping.
Where the fuck did that come from? I mean, all of a sudden I'm seeing on Twitter, David Ginola, you know, feeding Sandro Tonali a Savaloy dip.
It was such a strange setup,
very
wasn't
odd.
It?
Very odd.
There was lots of crumbs coming off that Savaloy dip. Or did they have a pasty as well?
They had a pasty as well. Right, they had a sausage roll too. They tried to kind of frame it as like a 4-course dinner, but they had a sausage roll as a starter. And you're like, that's not a starter. Like,
I think out of the 2 of them, though, you probably would do the sausage roll as a starter.
You would. The Savaloy dip. Then the Savaloy dip, of course. But I can't remember what they had first. I can't remember. Anyway, it was the most... I don't know why, but it was like a half-open video, so it was like 20 seconds into the video. So I was like, why is David Ginola feeding Sandro Tonali Savaloy dip? What's going on
here? Wearing a great tracks.
Yeah, exactly. It's the oddest thing. And I'm sure Sandro was kind of like, is this Newcastle? This is what Newcastle's all
kid,
about.
He's being chucked. I know it's a sponsorship deal which he's got himself, so it's paying the bills a little bit. But he hasn't got a clue what's happening.
Hey, he dealt with it well. He dealt with it blooming well. I didn't realise it had been filmed before.
His Geordie was mint. His Geordie accent
was good. Mint. It's decent. And I tell you what, his English is good and all. Because Bruno has set the ceiling now. Because I remember when he came in, he was talking and he was saying, we do a couple hours English lessons every single day, talk to my girlfriend around the house. Sandro, literally the exact same words to me the other week. He said, an hour of English every week. I'm talking to my girlfriend. He said, apparently she taught English or something. So she's quite well versed in English as well. But yeah, all right. He's not fluent in English, but Christ, I'm not fluent in Italian by any stretch. I can only speak about 3 words of Italian. So
should take Miggy to class with him.
Yeah, I know.
No effort whatsoever from me.
Absolutely love Miggy to bits. I respect him hugely for it, man. I'm not going to lie.
This is my language. I'm not changing.
Yeah, absolutely. Hugely respect the kid. But yeah, very, very impressed with Tonali's English already. Like, he's picking bits and pieces up. And just, again, decent bloke. Really good. I mean, the talent's there for all to see if anyone watched Milan last season. But yeah, he's looking pretty decent, I suppose. But I'll have to ask him in an interview at some point this season.
Why did you go for the sausage roll first?
It's a question that's been over my head for a good 7 days now, I would have said. So, first question up, not how are you finding Newcastle, not how are you feeling about netting a hat-trick against Manchester City at the weekend. It's literally going to be the Savaloy dip then with David Ginola. What was going on there, Sandro?
I wouldn't have had the English mustard in it. Because don't do that.
I bet it did. I bet it did at all. So yeah, welcome to Newcastle, Sandro. That's how it goes. David Ginola in an Italian restaurant with a Greggs sausage roll and a Savaloy dip to follow. Good on you. Look, we've kind of briefly touched upon it, and I know I always say it's half an hour, and then we end up going overtime. So we'll start sprinting through these last little couple of bits. The gaffer. Fucking hell, Chris, I've missed press conferences with this bloke. Like, I absolutely love him. I have to say the press conference was missing from a purely media standpoint, if I do get serious for a second. It was missing one person, and he announced that he was leaving the Shields Gazette, Miles Starford. So, Miles, absolutely brilliant journalist. I've loved reading Miles' stuff. Really good bloke to know. So, the press conference room was missing him. Today. It was also missing Luke, but I mean, I don't think anyone was asked about that, really, to be honest, while he's over in Australia covering the Lionesses. But it'd be good to have Luke back as and when. But yeah, it was sad not to see Miles there. Having said it, you know, Eddie, I mean, yeah, good form this morning.
He's a great bloke, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's just a nice bloke.
Yeah.
I'm so glad we've got a manager that's a nice bloke.
Yeah.
Rather than some of these other ones, but not seeing
the comments
names,
on the press conferences, don't you? Like when they're sticking on YouTube, and it's literally like, how the hell have we got this bloke as a manager? Straight every single one, apart from the odd comment who's like, who's the fucking annoying bloke? Third interviewee, I've allowed one, the one who doesn't need a microphone. That would be me. Don't know why this thing's here. I could have just yelled this into
this one.
Yeah, absolutely, I'll pick it up on there. We've got the sound desk down here, folks, and the slider is literally right down at the bottom for me, right up at the top for Chris. So I haven't learned how to monitor my voice. But seriously, on Eddie, like, yeah, tremendous. Look, there's two things that I kind of want to raise with Eddie. One is summer holidays. Summer holidays have lasted like whatever it was, 10 days, and he was in Iceland, and you'll have read the story about him, you know, finding out that Martin Dubravka was playing a game not far away from where they were staying. So he went and watched Martin Dubravka. The man can't, I'm going to say this in the nicest possible. He's just a football geek, isn't he? It's incredible.
Can't relax, can he?
It's fantastic. Can't relax. No, it's wonderful. I love it a bit. As someone who is like, you know, I love my job. I have that pales in insignificance how much Eddie loves his. Like, it's just incredible. He told this wonderful story about going camping in Alnwick as well, and booking a campsite that was about an hour away from Alnwick. Where he was taking his sons. So while Eddie is one of the most intelligent football managers I think I've ever interviewed and met, his geographical knowledge of Newcastle leaves a lot to be desired as of yet.
He had pitched his tent outside the meeting in that documentary with Newcastle, just Eddie out the back of the tent.
There's his camper van just outside. So I've got the kids with us. We're going to have to disappear at some point.
We're shooting in 10.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to bring a map along to St. James's Park, that might help. But yeah, that was tremendous. And also the swearing in the documentary. This has gone quite big, hasn't it?
Yeah, the pre-Man United game, isn't it?
Yeah. Loads of people like surprised at hearing Eddie swear. And I mean, I'll be honest, I think I've only heard him swear once, and that was, and I shit myself. It was last season, I think, and I used to try and take a shortcut to the press conference in the media room through the indoor training facility. And I could see like there was a TV crew set up at the far end of a barn. I was walking through, and suddenly I heard this voice. He was like, 6Smith, what the fuck do you think you're doing? I was like, fuck me, that's the gaffer. Like, what the hell have I done? Oh, crap, he's going to absolutely nap me for walking through the barn. I was like, I'm really sorry. Sorry, gaffer, I'll walk round. He was like, no, I'm kidding, man, you daft, etc. And that was the only time I'd ever heard Eddie swear before the documentary. And yeah, loads of people are absolutely shocked about it, but I can imagine there's one or two choice words fly around the dressing room.
He's a football manager, man.
My God.
This is like second nature to them. I'm not sure why people were shocked. It's probably because he's a nice guy.
Yeah. I mean, there's a very, very steely sort of side to Eddie Howe.
It's because he's very serious and he doesn't go off track, Eddie Howe. He's got a road and he sticks to that. And that's probably why people think, actually, this man swears.
Yeah. And you wouldn't mess with him.
Nah.
Like, you absolutely...
right over his shoulder.
Well, now 2 meters behind him now,
as
was the other thing, which sashays us on perfectly to the other thing in the press conference. I was going to ask this question, and then Razor beat me to it for BBC Newcastle. So thanks very much, Razor, for destroying me pre-prepared question. But I'm glad it got asked in all seriousness about this new rule that's come in, and obviously the fact that two managers or two people can't be at the front of a technical area. So delighted that Eddie answered this, and answered it in his usual fantastic style this morning in the press conference, and said his exact quotes were, he likes to venture forward, does Jason. So to stop him being sent off, we might have to chain him to the dugout. Now, I might be reading a little bit too much into this, and it might have just been a phrase that he was going to use just for the crack. But my brain immediately leapt to the fact that Jason has been nicknamed Mad Dog.
Yeah.
And I just thought, is Eddie, as usual, 3 steps ahead of us and has used that and thought, chain the Mad Dog to the dugout, happy days, let him go. If he did, that's a fucking line. That is a tremendous line. If not, and I'm barking up the wrong tree.
I'm curious to how it's going to work, because no pun, sorry, intended.
No.
It's going to be quite back and forwards between the two of them.
They said they're going to rotate. Eddie said he was going to rotate.
The tag.
I was like, this is fantastic. This is absolutely outstanding. It's like watching Willock and Joe Linton in midfield. Just like rotating back and forth.
Just going to pivot.
Thing is, at about 5:20 tomorrow night, I'm going to be more interested in what's happening in the Newcastle technical area than I am of what's happening on the pitch.
Map of just to the technical area.
The pacing, see how many blades of grass got covered all the way through. It's going to be a tremendous watch, but we're really sad to see the fact that that Jason isn't going to be alongside him necessarily, just about 1.5 meters.
I wouldn't be shocked if we don't see much of Eddie.
I know. Well, that's the thing. Eddie alluded to it. He said I might be the one who drops back because Jason will have something to say. I was like, this is going to be fucking fascinating.
I can't wait.
It's tremendous. I cannot wait to see it. So whatever happens on next week's show, I am definitely going to be mentioning this. And to be honest with you, any Newcastle fan, if you do get sick of me mentioning Eddie Howe this season, A, what sort of Newcastle United fan are you? But B, most importantly, get fucking used to it, because I could wax lyrical about Eddie all day, every day. So, apologies in advance. Let's round it off with the season, because to get serious, it's a fucking big season, isn't it?
Huge season. Difficult season.
Yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult.
And like you said at the very start, a lot of Newcastle fans think, I think I'm looking forward to it, because last year was quite unknown for Newcastle. This year, people are thinking where he had to battle up there with the top.
Yeah.
That's what I don't like about it.
And that's the thing, that in the press conference, I asked you right at the start of the show, like, if you'd have the shakes, I started to get them in the press conference this morning thinking, we're going to have to balance all of this. Like, Villa are going to be no mugs. We've got the most difficult start statistically in the Premier League this season. I'm nervous going forward, but I'm also like, it's that kind of excited nervous as well, because Newcastle United have never been better equipped to go into a season.
It's expectations now. That's what the issue is, expectations. And obviously, we're second game as Man City, then Liverpool, I think, after that as well.
Liverpool at home.
So those 2 games back to back, we need a strong start to the season in relation to Villa.
Yeah.
I think, I'm not saying it's a must-win. Don't think I'm saying it's a must-win already.
First game of the 38-game season.
3 points would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. And given the home form, and Villa haven't beaten us in the Premier League since 2005 at St James's, albeit with us both being out of the Premier League at various different things. But touch wood, that can continue tomorrow, we shall see. But Villa, no pushover. I have to ask you about the Champions League, because Darren Eales was on BBC Newcastle last night. Again, love Darren Eales. I mean, anyone who posts up a picture on Twitter with 2 friendly trophies lying in bed, obviously alluding back to his Atalanta days, was absolutely superb. But hearing him on BBC Newcastle, I can't remember who asked him, probably was Pridey in fairness, about who he wants in the Champions League group. So, I mean, he was relatively on the fence. He said someone from Germany, someone from Spain, someone from Italy. Who do you want? Who do you want?
It's going to be one of the big boys, though, isn't it? In fact, we're going to be 2 of the big boys, you would think, at least.
Yeah, 100%.
Do you know what it is? you want the best.
Yeah, you do.
Like people say, I'd rather get out of the group. Yes, of course you would, but you want to go up against the best. It's Champions League. Sometimes this is a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
Yeah.
And I don't think it will be for us.
Yeah.
But I want the best.
Absolutely.
I want all the big lads come to St.
And there's
James's.
not one team in that entire Champions League that'll look forward to going to St. James's.
So we're that team in pot 4 where nobody wants us.
That's the thing. Flip it on its head. Flip it on its head. I hear from so many people who are saying, first season back in the Champions League is going to be really difficult for you. It's going to be difficult up in the Northeast. Flip that on its head and you look at Barcelona, Real Madrid, AC Milan, who are looking at pot 4 and going, we don't want Newcastle. Yeah. We look at the home form from last season. We look at the type of football they play. We look at that crowd and hear that crowd. I mean, it's Barcelona, Real Madrid, AC Milan. They'll have been in volatile environments before. But St. James's Park, under the lights on a Champions League night, first time in 20 years, that's different.
We're that team that's got the little star next to them. We're thinking, keep an eye out for this one.
Absolutely. So, on that basis, PSG, Madrid, and AC Milan.
Take it.
I'm desperate to have AC Milan. Because I believe they're in pots 3, I think.
I can't remember.
They're in pot 3. Off the top of my head, I think
still
they
haven't figured this format out.
We're a couple of weeks away, mate. We're fine. It's a couple of weeks away before the draw. But, yeah, that can be for episode 3, I think, of the show instead. But, yeah, Champions League. They're the 3. PSG, Madrid, Milan, all come at the St. James's Park this season. Group of death, bring it on.
We are the death.
We are there. Don't know if that'll catch on as a slogan. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I can get that out of Eddie Howe one press conference. I would be delighted, mate. But I'll definitely ask him the question. Just finally, before we do wrap things up for episode 1, which is not being as absolutely terrible as I thought it was going to be, because it had my name on it. What makes a good season?
Ooh, tough question. Do you know what it is? We're ahead of schedule, and do you know what it is? Schedule. We can't look at ahead of schedule being that the owners will allow us to take a step back.
Yeah.
Yes, we've jumped a year or 2 ahead.
Yeah.
There's a new plan now.
Yeah.
That other plan's gone. There's a new plan.
Yeah.
I think successful season this year is another European qualification. I don't think it matters which European tournament, but I think we need to be in Europe.
Yeah.
And another strong cup run.
Yeah.
I'm not saying necessarily final, but a strong cup run. And that all depends on the teams which get put in front of you at the very start. But I think it'll be another decent season. I don't think it'll be as exciting as what last year was in regards to Premier League.
Yeah.
But I think it'll be another good season for us.
I don't think the squad's going to be too different. Obviously, Eddie talked this morning about bringing one more in. That's going to be a defensive signing, whether it's a left back or whether it's a centre back.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be one of the two. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to work that one out. So the squad's not going to be too much different. But as far as I'm concerned, listening to Eddie this morning, speaking to him the other week about it as well, it's about the fact that we're meeting it head on. It is a challenging season, this one, make no bones about it. Being in the Champions League, trying to get top 4 still. Yeah, that is essentially the plan. It's to compete in the Champions League. If dropping into the Europa League, it's to go far in the Europa League as well. But naturally, it's to try and qualify from a group first and then try and finish top 4.
Yeah.
Make no mistake, that is bloody difficult. Even with a squad as good as ours is at the moment, that's tough. But it's just refreshing to hear, again, referring back to what Eddie was saying this morning, refreshing to say, you know what? We see it as a challenge, but we're excited by the challenge. We're going to attack it. We're going to go on front foot, and we're going to do everything that you expect to see from this Newcastle United team now. Do we get overawed by any challenge? Absolutely not. Yep. Do we get worried? Do we get concerned? Absolutely not. There's nothing to worry about. As far as Newcastle United are concerned this season, it's about seeing how we get on the Champions League, sticking it in the Premier League, trying to finish top 4 and seeing where it comes out. But it's just bloody refreshing to hear the club turn around with the attitude of, you know what, wherever we end up, we're going to attack it and we're going to give it our best go. And that starts from the owners, the manager, obviously, but that's the players' attitude as well from what I've been speaking.
I think it just needs to filter down to the fans as well.
Yeah.
And think, let's not expect too much. Let's just go with the flow.
Yeah.
See what happens. Let's not get upset no matter what happens. Let's stick with the lads.
Saying that to football fans, mate. That's
get them out. Get them all out.
Nah, we shall see. But honestly, looking forward to it. We're on the eve of a brand new season. Obviously, Burnley, Man City tonight, and then Newcastle Villa tomorrow, which is going to be a tricky game. But we'll see how we go, and we'll see how many meters apart Eddie and Jason Tyndall keep on in the technical area. It's going to be like COVID's hit all over again. 2 meters. I was going to try and quote Sam Fender there, but I'm just not going to end the show like that. Nah, let's not go there. Anywho, let's round it off because in true timekeeping mode, my timekeeping is fucking disgraceful. We have gone way over half an hour, but there was a lot to get through in the opening episode. So anything else to add, Chris, before we wrap it up?
I'm good. I think 45 minutes we've done it.
45
minutes we've done it. 15 minutes over. This is what stoppage time is going to be like this.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
that's what it is.
It's just replicating the 101, 102 minute game. That's all we're doing.
We'll probably get out of St. James's Park on Tuesday.
That's what it's going to be. It's going to be longer every episode as well because my timekeeping abilities are shocking. Hopefully, timekeeping abilities are better all the way through the season. But listen, folks, thank you if you have watched. Thank you if you have listened. Obviously, subscribe to the man's channel, and hopefully you'll keep watching. Hopefully you'll keep listening to that 6Smith show. Really enjoyable start, good first episode, and we'll be back with more different, alternative insight into Newcastle United's roller coaster season next week. But whatever happens, stick with the club. They're sticking with you. Everyone together. Newcastle United are going far in 2023, 2024. From him, Chris Wallace. From me, Andy 6Smith, this has been That 6Smith Show. We will see you in 7 days.
See you later.